Hey, Brian, I want to get back to the intensity aspect of it. And you talked a little bit about that. And I would think, obviously, any crisis has a period of intensity because you have to deal with it, respond to it, etc. But for you, just what are the intensity channels? Is it the weight of the client requesting something, the speed of which you need to get something out? What are those intense things that you feel on almost every sort of crisis, and how do you get through those?
It's all of the above, and I think that's what makes it so challenging, is that you need to get to decisions, and you need to get to decisions quickly. And this is what Larry Kramer talked about when he was on your podcast a few months ago, is those decisions are hard to reach because you're often factoring in multiple different constituencies, multiple different factors. There's always the unknown that happens in a crisis, and reaching that decision is hard to do. And you see that when companies are delayed in making those decisions, whether that's when to communicate, who to communicate to, what they're going to say, who they're going to involve in the decision-making process, it significantly slows down the response time. And the slower you are on your response time, the less effective the communication is going to be. And so, in terms of intensity, there's varying levels of intensity. Sometimes it's, the crisis is not an existential crisis, a bet the company sort of thing where, if you don't get it right, the company is going to go away. But, I worked on a project when I was at Brunswick Group where we were in a war room 18 hours a day for at least the first 2 weeks after the crisis happened, where every single day it felt like the company was going to fold if we didn't get the response right. Fortunately, through a lot of hard work, both by the team that was responding to the crisis, the company, the board of directors, the company got through it. But it was an extraordinarily intense 2 weeks where it was all on all of the time, and it started at 6 a.m. when you started getting calls from reporters. You had to triage all of the different work that needed to get done during the day. You needed to find out when you're going to talk to the board. And that would sort of take the team through the day. And then the very last thing that we would do at 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night is the interim CEO would come into the room and say, okay, what do I need to say to employees? They need some guidance so they know that they can show up at work in the morning and have a pretty clear set of actions to know what they need to do in order to get through the next day. And so we'd sit down there and we'd write a fairly long, 2-3 page employee note at the end of the day that encapsulated everything that happened and everything we needed to do the next day. So it's, in that situation, we were the consultants, but it also felt intensely personal. Everybody who was at the company was in the crisis with us. They wanted the company to succeed. They knew that if the company didn't succeed, they're all going to be looking for jobs. And so not only was it, a big reputational issue, but their livelihoods were at stake. And it just felt, kind of back to Paul's point, that the work was really consequential and ultimately really rewarding.
Yeah, I try to explain that to people when you're in a room like that, what it feels like, and you feel the weight, right? And particularly if you're in a room and a crisis is happening and there's a lot on the table, whether it be money, whether it be reputation, whether it be a lawsuit or something. And when you say personal, it's true, because you're looking at a CEO, you're looking at the vice president, you're looking at the legal team, you're getting on the phone with a reporter who's going to write a story, and the weight of that can be heavy, really, really heavy. And that's the reason why people pay good bucks for crisis communications.
They do, and I think it takes a certain kind of person to be successful at crisis communications. If you're the kind of person who, gets frazzled and starts going in 100 different directions when the intensity ramps up, you're not going to be successful at crisis communications. If you're the kind of person who can bring the pressure level down and remain calm, cool, and collected in a crisis, you're going to be more effective in terms of communication, more effective in terms of decision making, more effective in terms of consensus, and just gathering information and providing good advice. Nobody wants to make the intensity any higher. And so I've always looked at it as my job is to try and bring down that level of intensity.